Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight with Candy Publishing's live Facebook interview with Dr. Sandy Winborne, Winnie Associates, and her Are You Stuck sessions. Hello, Dr. Winborne.
Hi, Lavender. How are you? Glad to have me here.
Yes, I am just fine. And I hope that if someone is watching, you can let me know if I am coming in loud and clear.
I hear you, but I don't see you.
Wait a minute, you don't see me.
No, you're not there. I see me, but I don't see you. It has your name. Now I'm full screen.
How about now?
No.
Now, we were just fine a few minutes ago.
Right. I don't know what happened, but something turned off where you're not visible.
Okay. Well, you know what? We're going to go ahead and get started. While I figure this out,
Okay.
I would like you to just briefly share what Are You Stuck is.
Okay. After retiring from the federal system in December of 2014, I just needed something to do, and I had this idea. I woke up with this concept of you got to do something. There's no way I was just going to go home. So I said, well, a program. I just need to train. I need to do what I did for the federal system. And I used to train military people worldwide. And I just said, I just need to do something. So I sat down and I said, I'm stuck. So I have to look at how if I'm stuck, other people could be stuck. So I started building around the concept of being stuck. And what does that require? What does it require you to do? You're going to have to take some steps. And so I started looking at my dissertation, which dealt with multiple intelligences. And so it talks about if you want to get someplace, you have to show people what they can do and let them start believing in what they can do and let go of the things that they can't. And so that's how it all began, where I started just putting this program together that talked about the multiple intelligences, using them as the basis for anything that I trained on, and speaking to what it is that they might have a shortfall on, or they may be, exceptional in. So I dealt with all of at that time, there were 8. I think they've added extensional tracking now, which is another multiple intelligences, which talks about, the area that goes beyond why are we here? It asks the questions, why do I live and why do I die? So that would be the existential portion of the intelligence of us. But then it also talks about the other 8 ones, which naturalist before that was the one that came in last. And those would be anybody that loves the outdoors. They may study, and I do see you, they may study the environment. They may be proponents of certain foods that they only eat that come from being grown organically. They study animals, trees, flowers, whatever, bees. So that would be them. And then the other ones, of course, deal with the personal, interpersonal, and those kinds of things, just finding out who you are. And sometimes we don't know that until it points out based on some of the things that we do.
Okay, the reason that I got excited about Are You Stuck was just the name of it alone. Are you stuck? So just asking myself personally, are you stuck? So not even before the pandemic, it doesn't matter what you're involved in, where you are in life. It could be in the middle of a job, it could be marriage, a relationship, friendship, changing careers, new into parenthood, new into adulthood. Are you stuck? So do you believe that everyone at some time is stuck in their
Yes,
life?
I do. Yes, I do. In fact, I do that every day from 9 o'clock. And I did it on a dare that my friend, who I'm speaking to right now, suggested that I try it. She said, well, you've been talking about doing it, so just go ahead and do it. So that was the first time I did a live was on April 4th, 2020. And we were starting out with the pandemic. So I said, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, but it worked. And I do say that to everybody because in fact, that's my byline. I say, are you stuck? And I always put my head forward to get people into the understanding we all get stuck. We're gonna. It could be finances, it could be relationships, husbands, wives, children, anything, jobs, whatever. We always can get stuck.
How do we get stuck? How do we get stuck? How do we find ourselves getting stuck?
I think we find ourselves getting stuck because we have great difficulty getting around it. And so the find is when we can't move. That's the discovery. At that juncture, that there's something in your way. It's obstructing you. It could be your mind. It could be the fact that you're tied to something heart-wise. And so we get stuck based on things that we feel we can't go, beyond where they're at. They're not ready. We're not ready. And so we get stuck.
Okay, and being stuck can be anyone, anywhere, from a person who has just recently graduated from college, may not know the direction that they want to go into. It could be an ex-offender, someone just getting out of jail, not knowing what direction, not knowing what their skills are, addicts, or anybody that's had any kind of turmoil in their life. And even now, especially with the pandemic, many have found that they've lost their jobs, or their job is in limbo, or it's not secure, or they're trying to find out what their new normal is. How do I identify my new normal? So what would be the first step? I come to you, I'm in the middle of this pandemic. I'm like, you know what? I just feel stuck. I'm in a rut. I don't know what to do. How can you help them?
Well, I think what I generally do is I start out to find out where they are, because to me, you first have to determine by self-determination, because I wouldn't know unless you tell me. And then I go around and ask them, because my background is counseling, so I'm going to ask them, so what are you stuck on? How long have you been stuck with this? And what causes you great pause right here? And then they start telling me what those things are. I also say, I suggest you do the assessment. And the assessment really talks about how, and you can do the multiple intelligences, or you can do the personality assessment. Both of those assessments really drill down on what kind of person you are. It even shows you if you're in the wrong area. And so the area that you're in may keep you stuck often and long. It'll be a long time because you can't move, because it's not really your area. People that are in their own, what I would call their own comfort zone, they soar. Nothing can stop them long. It may give them pause, but it doesn't give them great pause.
So where did this even come from? I'm not sure if you mentioned this in your introduction. You mentioned that counseling is your background. So this is something that you've always done. What interests you in this?
I started with my doctorate, and my question for my obviously my dissertation was, are military members prepared for the civilian workforce, utilizing what they already have currently in working on the military? So I used to train the military for credentials and making sure that there was a match between the career field they were in and any credential that aligned with the civilian, occupation. So that's what I did for all the services. I did it DOD wide. And so when I got out, that was the original transition into that. And then I started adding other stuff to it. But the question for my doctorate was, do you know that you can use the Montgomery GI Bill for the purpose of gaining credentials? You can leave the military and not have to start at the lower end of a career field because you didn't get all the things that the career field says you need. But if you do the credential itself and get in what they say is required to pass a test, and maybe so many hours of working under the tutelage of someone else, that's what you would do. And that's how it sets it up. So that's how it started. And then I've just built on it, and I've added other things once I finished up my doctorate, because I finished my doctorate in 2006. So it's been a while now.
Okay, so you have these sessions, these Are You Stuck sessions, Monday through Friday on Facebook Live.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were to share this with someone, what can they expect to hear on your Are You Stuck sessions? They're in a position where they want to be unstuck.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to hear when they come to your sessions?
Every day I change whatever. And I tell you, I am spiritual and I do believe in God. So every day I just get a new word that he's given me. And I break the word down according to how they all relate to what I would call the umbrella word, the big word. And so I may talk about how you're standing. I may look at stand. I may look at the tower of you. How are you situated for being strong at whatever's coming your way? I may look at how wise you are. I may look at money. Every day I've done a different topic every single day. I always break it down, and I always go back to whatever I started with and make everything all kind of congeal and relate to the master word, or so to speak, to give people a sense of understanding what stuck could be in your finances, what stuck could be being stuck at home with family members that you really don't get along well with. I actually go through, and then I do confide. So I do give some of my own experience in that, because, I've lived a long time. So I let folks know, hey, this is how it was for me, or this is what I've dealt with, be it with a child, raising a child, being with having been married, having worked with people that sometimes weren't the greatest people to work with, but that's just it. You get stuck, and you have to figure out how to do it. So that's what I do. I work them through all those things every day, and they can always ask questions, and I always leave room for them to write in a thread, and then I repeat it back so everyone, if they're just listening by it, auditorily, then I might repeat it back what they're saying.
Okay, and you have, so on any given day, they're going to be able to find something that can help them get unstuck in whatever transition of life that they're in.
Right.
Okay. Now, you also, before the pandemic, you actually had workshops where we could actually come and pay a fee and take a test to find out who we were, to find out what our specialties are, what our talents are, our skills that we may not be aware of.
Right.
And that was called a multiple intelligences test. Now, most people have not heard of multiple intelligence. They think that whatever they have, whatever their skill is, or whatever they're good at, that's what they do. But this test, and speaking from experience, when I attended the workshop in Pensacola, I was amazed at how well my questions, how I answered, told me some things about myself, some areas in my life that I may not have been aware of that I was good at, or that maybe I should at least try. So I want to encourage you all to take that test, because even as we evolve and transition in life, we can retake that test. So I recently, was it this year, last year, that I took the test again, and being in transition myself from a 20-year marriage to a single woman, even moving from one state to another, starting my life over, I could have been considered stuck. But because of that multiple intelligence test, I realized there may be some things that I need to tap into that I may have feared tapping into that helped me. And what was the one that was it called? Naturalistic?
Naturalist. A naturalist. It's called naturalist intelligences.
Yes. And can you share what the different types I'm going to put it up so they can see it also. What the different types of intelligence.
Right. And I'll just start because I wrote them down too, because I can see a little bit bigger than that. There's linguistic, and that would be the person that basically they're going to find the right words to say the right things and make sure they make themselves clear. So that's the linguistics person. That's probably also a person that could be a public speaker. They could be a writer. They could be a storyteller. They could be, someone that is involved with giving information, listening, and then giving more information. Then there's also the interpersonal intelligence, which talks about one's ability to understand how people feel and how they may behave and how they can interact with them. They have a discerning spirit for that. And then there's the intrapersonal, and that would be the person that understands who they are, period. They just know that this is what they want, this is what they don't want, this is how they feel, this is how they don't feel about things. There's also musical intelligence, and that's going to be the person that has a discerning ear and understands pitch, they understand tone, they get it with the timbre, they get all of that, anything that's musical, they get it. So they might be singers, they might be, people who play instruments, they might be people who just have a way of putting instruments and singing together and run an orchestra or a choir. So those are all the areas of musical intelligence. Then there's the logistical mathematical, and those are the people who basically quantify. They're going to look after something. They're going to quantify what it is that they think. So they're either going to put it in a hypothesis and then prove it. Okay, they may say, this is what I think, and then they're going to go out and find a way to prove what they believe or what they have so stated. Then they have the bodily kinesthetic, and that's the person that they basically are the movers. They might be your gym instructors, they might be your fitness personal trainers, they might be people who are dancers, but it's a mind and body coordination. That's what they do. There's also the naturalist, which is what we just talked about. They're the ones, the birds, the bees, the trees, the thieves. They're outside, they just enjoy it. They could write about it, or they can just be amongst it and be fine. And then there's, of course, the existential, which we talked about. Those are the ones that track, and why am I here? Why are you here? And then why are we going to one day not be here? Why are we going to die? That would be all of them. And I'm quite sure, Dr. Howard Gardner, who's a Harvard professor, decided the importance of this. And that's how multiple intelligences came about, because his daughter felt that she didn't have as much to going for her once she got to school, because she felt that maybe she had done more rote memory like we had done when we were younger, and we were able to remember things and do well on tests. And she felt that she was out of her league. But then he had to drill down the fact that, excuse me, that you can dance, and that you can do music, and you can. So there was all these other things. And sometimes when we get out of the way of the train coming that says everything has to be going on this track, and you realize that you can get on another track, or you can get off and walk, or you can get off and run, that's what makes it real. And so that's why I guess I love this program. And I think the original book is Frames of Mind. And then the second book by Dr. Howard Gardner was Reframing Multiple Intelligences. So that means they go back and look at, well, there's other ways to learn, and there's other ways to get information and give information.
And for those parents who have children, there's also a multiple intelligence for children. So right. It is great if you can tap into this as a young person, if you have parents that can find out what your skills and talents are as a young person, instead of spending your whole life doing something that you think
right.
you do, and realizing later on in life that, hey, let me try this. I might be good at that. And I think the important thing is to have the courage and to want to try some different things, because you never know. So you got to get past that fear first.
Right. I think my introduction from the book was through a friend of mine Dr. Paula Tucker Hogan, who sent me she redirected me to that book because I felt that my child was really smart, but because she had a weakness in one area, I felt that she let it just kind of malaise and intertwine in all the other areas of her capabilities. But I was trying to tell her, but you write well, even though you may not do math well, so sometimes we fall short on everything only because there's really only one problem. We have one problem, but we let it run into being everything.
Right, right. And we only have one life. I say that all the time. We only have one life. It would be a shame to live the most part of your adult life and not have found what your niche is, not have found what that area is of life that you can not just be successful at, but enjoy. So
Right.
we don't want to have a job that we go to every day and not enjoy it. We go for a paycheck. But if you're at that position in your life where, hey, I'm only 5 or 10 years out from retirement, I need to stick with this. But what are you going to do after?
Right.
After.
I think most people, this is my understanding of life for a lot of people, just as a counselor and also as a person who's done it now, is that most people put off their what I would call their swan song exciting thing only because they are so obligated in the younger years, obligated to family, obligated to job, obligated to house, obligated to making sure the food is on the table and the bills are paid and so forth and so on and so on and so on. And if they're in a marriage, that too. So I think people don't really get to the point where they're comfortable of making decisions. And sometimes if you notice, that's when marriages end, is when they finally are free enough to say, I'm done with this. So, I've experienced that with clients. When people just get to the point when they feel they're ready, for their next, chapter, their next adventure, their next journey, that's when they put the other stuff down and they said, you know what, I did that enough. I did that 35 years. I did that 40 years. I'm done with that.
Right.
So that's what and then it makes it exciting to them because then they can do it at their leisure. As long as they want, they can stay up as long as they want. They go bed when they want to, so that's to me, those are the perks. Those are the perks of even working for yourself, especially if they decide that they're going to do it from their own vantage point of, I'm running this ship. I'm driving this train.
Right.
So that's what makes it good. Makes it a good thing for them.
So what would you tell someone who is straight out of high school? They have all these options. They're being pressed to go to college. They may not want to go to college. They've got someone in their ear saying, go get a trade. Society has already conditioned us that, you're not successful unless you got this, this, and this. But that person may not want any of that.
Right.
What would you tell someone straight out of high school with all these different directions that they can choose?
I think what I would say, what I said, and what I probably would continue to say to the people who are younger than 40, their story to me and my discussion with them is different than the person who's over 40 and has already started well in their life. Family, love, divorce, characteristics of life. Okay. The young people, first of all, I think they got it right because they're going to live on their own terms. So what I've discovered, and this is what was part of what I used to train on for the military, is that the military has always been told what to do. But on the civilian side, once they get out, they almost are like, what? You mean you're not going to tell me what to do? So that is an unusual thing for them. Young people already have that. They already have that attitude of you're not going to tell me what to do. And so companies, once they started outsourcing, that started the trend of only hiring people part-time or only hiring for a job. Once the job was over, a project, once the project was over, the job was over, and the person was back out there. Young people have adapted to that lifestyle of, I'll work for you a little bit, but they're never worried about getting a key to the 5th floor. They're not worried about, a special bonus. They're not going to, because they know, because a lot of them are hired part-time. They're hired part-time. So I would tell the young person to explore. I would tell them, go into your bag of goodies, because it's more available to you than it was for those of us who are extremely traditional, extremely, job oriented, and we stay in something for 40 years,
Right.
only to realize that we hated it for 40 years. We'll stay in marriages for 40 years. We'll stay in jobs for 40 years. We'll stay in families because we're connected to them for 40 years, and it's miserable. But the younger people, I would tell them, explore your goodie bag. If you don't want to go to college, don't go to college. But you have to do something that's going to help you survive. So either you learn to do it, what I call it, on the click and the clack. That means you go when they say click, and when you're done, you say clack. That means the door's shut. I'll see you later. They're done. They're done. Click clack. And the companies are like that too. They like that because a lot of them will only hire part-time. But they'll hire for the job, as I said. They'll only hire for the project once the project's over. So if you have a young person that is what I would call adaptable, flexible, adjustable, and they have their own reliance now. They're going to look into themselves to do what they want to do. When they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. So I wouldn't force them to try to go sit in college. I wouldn't force them into even a trade school. What I would say is do something. But first of all, let's do this multiple intelligences test. Let's do the personality test. And it's going to tell you some things about who you are. And it doesn't ask you things that are inconspicuous. It asks you normal stuff. And by you normally, you don't feel pressure not to answer it. You want to answer it. But by answering it, it actually paints a picture of who they really are.
And I think it's important to be honest when you take that test, to be completely honest. Mm-hmm. So if anyone is interested, and if you catch the replay, if you're interested in taking that test, you can go to that website and take the multiple intelligence test. And how long is it? This takes you about what?
It depends. I would say about 20, 25 minutes, but it depends on how fast they read, because it's it doesn't throw you out the system if it's not timed. So you could be there as long, it depends on how fast you read and how fast you interpret what it is that we're asking and how quickly you answer.
Okay, so it would take 30 minutes, if that long, 30 minutes of your life to have some enlightenment to what's ahead of you. And I highly recommend it. It's, and you mentioned something, you said, do something.
Do something.
What about that person who you just answered the question. They don't want to go to college, or they went to college. They want to work in their field, can't find a job in their field. They're just kind of stuck. They've got this degree. They don't know what they want to do. It's like, okay, I'm going to take this test, but is this test going to put some money in my pocket? I need to make some money.
Right. One of the things that I do, Lavender, and I did it for myself. I am a proponent of showing people what you know and owning up that if I'm already not being paid, that I'll take it for a little while and not be paid. It works. I volunteered as a counselor in Italy. And I didn't know if they were ever going to give me a job, but I still took my style with me. I took my abilities with me. I took my smile with me. They hired me. And then it moved from, that was the school system. I did 1.5 years in the school system, and then almost 2.5 years in the counseling center. So what I'm saying to you, volunteering is good because you can get a sense of, do I really like it? You can get a sense of, am I made for this? Because if somebody comes in and they faint or they're crying or or something went down and you can't handle it, as a counselor, you got to be able to handle stuff. Okay. So I would say go find somebody that you can also, that's another thing I tell them, find somebody that you can ask them to mentor you. See some characteristics that somebody has, do it. If you want to learn how to speak, follow somebody that speaks well. If you want to learn how to write, not only do you watch what they write, especially if it's public, you sit down and you start writing. Okay. Same thing. If you want to be a public speaker, daggone it, start with the mirror, put it up to the mirror, go from the mirror to the recording to a small session, volunteer at church to do a lesson, a Sunday school lesson, or go over to the Y or to some of the local centers and offer your services for nothing. People are absolutely taken aback by somebody who will start with volunteering.
Right.
So
right.
I say volunteer, and then you may get called to be paid just by you just saying, I'm gonna give this up just for a little while to learn more and put my information out there.
So that's a good idea. That's a good suggestion for parents of teenagers or even adult children who are still trying to find their way. Go volunteer,
Absolutely.
test the waters. Now here's a biggie. The pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many people that are being impacted with their jobs and finances and no jobs unless it's flipping burgers. But so far as working for a big company, nobody's really hiring like that right now. And if they are, then people are thinking about their health, if they even should go to work. So that's a big stuck right there.
Right.
So what kind of words would you give so many people who are in that position? Are you stuck? What can I do to get unstuck? And if there is no set in stone answer, what can they do while they wait?
I think periodically, because I did a session the other day on weight, and and weight sometimes gives you pause, but it gives you pause to do something. It doesn't give you pause to feel pitiful, to feel like I'm worthless, to feel like Henny Penny and the sky is falling. It doesn't do that. It does if you let it, and I was talking about that whole thing of how, in the Bible, how this thing of don't look back was all about. We can always look at what we used to do. Always. It could have been good. It could have been bad. It could have been absolutely horrible. Okay. But if we constantly put ourselves in the position of being behind where we are, then we can't look forward. You can't look forward and back at the same time. So what I would tell people, I know, I understand you. I hear you that things have changed. So this is an opportunity for you to change. If things have changed in terms of your ability to do something for somebody else and get paid, then start doing something for yourself and look at how you can maybe bring some attention, some changes, some things, making it happen for others. I said, I started my class, Are You Stuck, online, but I used to only do it in person. So sometimes we just have to recreate what it is that we do and make it our own, make it where somebody wants to do it. First of all, you're going to go down to what I call the level of what is the purest form of what I do? How can I make it that people want it, that they will come back to hear me, and then start it out. Maybe they can write a book while they're, I say journal. I tell everybody journal. When people would come to my office, everybody left. They left with homework. I gave everyone homework for the next time I see them. They come in there and talk about, well, Sandy, you didn't give me anything. Oh, yes, I did. Here's what I gave you. And I don't have a photographic memory, but I have a good enough memory to remember what I told you because I put it down in the notes. Notes say I told you something to do. So when they come in and they have nothing, then that tells me how serious they are about really trying to get, ahead of where they are. So
Right.
sometimes you just have to tell people, if you feel that you've been, kind of led astray, lonely, heartbroken because life has changed so much for you, then turn it the other way around and start doing things on your terms, meaning you're not working for, X company. You're going to work for your own company. You're not going to create anything for them. You're going to create something for yourself. And then you do it in such a way that people want to hear what you're doing. Make it enticing, have it where, they can come in, they can, maybe ask questions, and offer some things to them, offer some things. In fact, I just noticed online where Kaylin Wesley, pastor's daughter from our church, is going to start an online fitness. So once again, that's recreating herself. When things shut down and you can't go to the traditional office, I think eventually everybody is going to be doing something virtually. It's going to be a long time before we, even after the pandemic is over, to not get over the remnants of thought, heart, concern for yourself of what the pandemic did. It basically repositioned everybody to be distant. That's okay. I'll hug you. I'll hug you with my finger. I'm pointing at you. That's your hug. You just change things.
Yeah.
So we have to change. We have to change. When we see change, we have to also change. Have to.
And life is always changing. It's always going to be something. Like you said, even after the pandemic, before the pandemic, it was always something where you have to, this is military, adapt and adjust.
That's right.
Circumstances around you and move forward. Now, switching gears, we're really not switching gears, but mentioning what you can do during the pandemic. Now, you are a first-time author and you got all of this work done. You finished this book collaborating with someone on your first children's book. And I am going to put it up so they can see. Al's 10 Fingers is a children's book that you recently, it's just newly released, right?
Just released last week, yes.
Right. So share a little bit about Al's 10 Fingers and how that came up through the pandemic. It was birthed through the pandemic while in quarantine.
Yeah, the irony of it all is that I started, and the book is about Mr. Al Martin, a well-known musician, seasoned musician, and a gifted musician from Pensacola, Florida here. And he, about probably coming up on 2.5 years ago, he was sick, and he helped me finish up my doctorate. And I said I wanted to go see him. So I went to see him in his hospital, and he said, all I want is just to have a book. And I said, I'm like, write my own book, Mr. Al. And I'm all like cheery. And when I left, I just was taken aback because it was like all of a sudden, you ain't writing your book anymore. You're going to write Mr. Al's book. So I started with this concept. God had given me this concept where it's going to be huge. And I've done all the research. I just have to finish assembling the big book. So the big book started with, I've researched and talked with probably about 67 people or more.
Good Lord.
About who Mr. Al was. And I found out that Mr. Al has probably trained half of Pensacola, Florida on being able to play the piano. So anyway, I ran with that. And then in, I think it must have been October of 19, I woke up, here I go again, and I was given, you were going to write the children's book first. And I'm like, come on now, you must be joking. Talking to God now, it's early morning talk. He said, oh no, you're going to write a children's book. So I set out to write a children's book. I started with finding an illustrator, and the illustrator is Carter J. Gaston from Pensacola, Florida, originally out of Georgia. Wonderful, wonderful little illustrator. Just has done great things around Pensacola. So I went to him and I said, hey, can you come over and meet Al Martin and see if you can talk with him, and maybe if you can take some ideas of how we think I can play out a story. So once I knew the story, and the story basically just speaks on the fact that he knew as a child that he wanted to play music. But not only did he play one instrument, he's played several instruments, and people don't even know that. But he went to his parents, and and he had a discussion. And that's what this book is about. Al's 10 fingers, he used them to play music, but he knew it as a child that that was his calling. And sometimes we as parents need to listen to our children. First of all, we need to let them lead us, and we follow long enough to find out what it is they're doing and what it is they're requesting to have done. And for him, it was to play the piano. And ultimately, he became a player for his church at a very young age. And so this could be all kinds of children. And so not only did I write the children's book, but I decided to do some research, that's part of what a doctor's supposed to do. So I did some research to find out, well, what happens to the brain of a young child with music? And it says it's not just the child that listens to music, it's the child that learns how to play an instrument. It says it talks about the manipulation of notes and understanding the tones and everything, and the notation and all those things that music does. It says it basically rewires the brain. So I put that in the book. That's on the back cover. It's also in the little bio section on the website, on Amazon's website. And to me, I just feel that it was God-given, God delivered, God prepared. And then, of course, I would bug you every now and then when I got stuck with something in the publishing area, because, it was self-published, so by Winnie Associates. So it's a first, and I think I came out pretty good by it being a first. Little bit.
Definitely have to get my copy of it now. That was done while in quarantine.
Absolutely.
Published by Winnie and Associates. So you wrote a book. Published a book. Okay.
Wrote it, published it, went crazy formatting it, and then I published it, and it went live. And then we wanted to change something, so I took it down from being live, and then did some changes and published it again. So I know what it is to be crazy. I probably should have been in Lakeview the last 2 weeks, so I'm resting now. The fact that I finally got done, and some people have gotten their copies and they're very impressed. So I'm saying a hallelujah moment for that.
And it is available on Amazon.com and wherever online books are sold. Mm-hmm. And we just encourage you all to go to Amazon and purchase a book and look for the, whether it'll be a virtual book signing or a book signing there in Pensacola, Florida. You can just contact or follow Dr. Winborne on her website, or her, should I say, Facebook Live. They can contact you
on Facebook Live. Yeah.
Sandra,
too, though, but more on Facebook Live.
Yeah, Sandra Gary Winborne. It's there on the screen. Now, what would you do in closing remarks? You wrote a book while in quarantine. There's a lot of people still in quarantine. They may not feel like they're being as productive as they can. Quarantine can make you lazy. It can make you just, want to lounge and not do anything, and just you get stuck. You get stuck. And that could be your new normal. Is just
normal. Yeah.
So what kind of words would you offer with us being still in the pandemic, may be here for a long, long time, but wanting to get the most out of quarantine, wanting to get the most out of just being productive?
I would say do more today than you did yesterday. Keep track of what you did yesterday so you can pull it well into tomorrow.
Okay.
And then be excited about it, because you can see progress with that. If you did only one thing yesterday, the day you did two, adding one to what you did yesterday, then therefore you're further along than what you were before. And so that's why I say, pull everything up to you. Don't go back and get it. Pull it along. Make sure it's with you. Make sure that you're doing something. You can journal. There it is again. You can journal. If you don't want to journal, you can certainly look at finding somebody that you can do Zoom with, because Zoom is free for the first 40 minutes. You can Zoom. You can, but let it be that it's productive. You know, I know that people can waste time on gossip and waste time on what I would call superfluous, unnecessary junk.
Isn't that like relaxing? Isn't it called relaxing?
Well, you know me, and I guess a lot of people do. They know that I do put in a lot of hours on trying to do something, but I don't do it just to benefit me. I do it to benefit others. So I would certainly tell everybody, do something, even if it's just mark your time. Mark it that you did something today that you didn't even do yesterday, but you added something. And then keep adding things and keep adding things. To me, the more you add, just in terms of now you do have to have a goal. Okay, so I don't want it to make it like it's goalless. Have a goal, set a goal. I'm gonna write in a journal 5 days a week. I'm gonna be off on the weekends. Okay, or I'm going to start an outline for a book. You know, or you can say, I'm going to look at writing the low budget business plan. Okay, how can I start a business in quarantine? What would the business be? Who else is going to work it? If I'm going to do it by myself, what do I need? Is anybody else doing it? Because you have to do some surveying now. Who else is out there doing what you're doing? Then you also want to look like how often do I have to be in school to learn some things? Because you don't want to be avalanched by not knowing your craft.
Right.
If you're doing something, you need to know the business.
Right.
You need to know the business. You need to be educated enough to speak on anything anybody asks you, and not be scared. Not be scared about an answer. I've always done that. I always shore up, before I go out and do something. And there's always going to be something I don't know because I'm not brilliant. I'm okay, but I'm not.
You're not?
No. No, I work hard. I constantly say, okay, what else do I need to know?
And that's good. That's a good preventive measure to not continue to be stuck, is to always grow, because we always evolve. So that was good. That was a really good message, closing remarks. I mean, you have everything anybody would need to be successful, to find their skills, their talents. You have the resources. So I just want to encourage anyone who's watching, or you watch the replay, to share this video. It will be shared several times after this evening, to go to Dr. Winborne's Facebook page. You can find her, Sandra Gary Winborne, PhD. It's on the screen. Her live Are You Stuck sessions on Facebook Live. These are free sessions that you can get and obtain from and learn from and grow from, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Central. So it's almost like being in school, going to have a lesson. They last, maybe 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah, 45 is the longest. Yeah. About the longest. One thing I do want to encourage people to do is share it. Share this information, because if you had to pay for what it is that I do, first of all, you'd pay for the degree. And then second of all, you'd pay for the fact that I know what I'm talking about. I don't come to you and I have not tried to study. So if you share it, then that means more people would come, and I'm not looking for you to pay. I'm just looking for the opportunity for more people to share it than other areas could come in, where other people could ask me to advertise for them for the fact that they would have an audience. So that would be the nice thing. But I just encourage everyone to not be stuck. Look at what you can do in the limited time, limited space you have to do it in. You know, we know that we don't know how long we'll be in pandemic. We really don't. Listening to the experts, the scientists, it may be sometime next year. So therefore, in a year's time, I want to have something to show for a year's time of me being in, you know, kind of distant, socially distant from folks. And that's what we should look at. That's what we should do.
Because we're going to look back on the pandemic and wonder what we did, you know?
Right.
So it's like, okay, so what did you do during the pandemic? What did you do while quarantined? So you want to at least feel good about what you did. So you can contact Dr. Winborne at her email address, drwinborne@credentialsforyou.com, if you have further questions. And as we mentioned earlier, you can also catch her on Facebook Live Monday through Friday. So she is accessible. You can reach her at any time and ask her questions, and don't be stuck. So as we close, you can go ahead and say what you say in the beginning of your sessions, at the ending of your session, Sandy.
I'm going to ask you this question, and I always do. Are you stuck? Yes, we're all stuck. We're going to get stuck for so many reasons, so many things. The point is that we can't stay there. We cannot stay. You can't. And my mother used to say, if you stay in some place too long, you're going to rotten out. So I don't want to be rotten. I want to be able to say I moved and I let some air get here and there, and I was on my way.
All right. Okay. Thank you all for joining us. And remember to share this video. And when you attend her sessions, to share the sessions, and have a good evening. Sandy, you stay right there. Don't sign out. Yes. Thank you for joining us.